They just asked me on BBC how the EU could possibly find itself so, excuse my language, appallingly sidelined by the peace process in Ukraine just now.
We will continue to support Ukraine, as we've done before. Ukraine can count on us, because this is not only an aggression against Ukraine, but it is an aggression against the principles of the UN Charter. It's on European soil, and therefore we will support Ukraine for as long as it takes.
Apparently, Ukraine and its European allies are still living in illusions and dream of inflicting a strategic defeat on Russia on the battlefield. I think that at the basis of such a position lies not so much a low level of competence. I will not discuss that aspect now. But most likely this position is connected with the absence of objective information about the real state of affairs on the battlefield.
The world has just watched European power get exposed in real time, revealed as far weaker and far less influential than the image Europe has projected for decades. The place where this collapse has become undeniable is the war between Russia and Ukraine, a conflict that was meant to showcase the strength of the European Union. Instead, it's revealed how irrelevant Europe has become on the global stage. In this video, we're going to break down the devastating and embarrassing outcome the EU now faces, and we're going to look at how Europe's behavior has echoed the same colonial instincts it has used across Africa for generations. If you want to understand what this new global reality could mean for Africa, particularly in terms of opportunity, then this video is for you. If you don't know me, my name is TJ. I'm Nigerian and British mixed, and on this channel, we talk about African geopolitics. For decades, Europe behaved as if its power was permanent, as if its authority was unquestioned, and as if the rest of the world would simply accept whatever narrative Europe declared. The Ukraine war has stripped away that image right now. It revealed a Europe that is loud in its rhetoric, but weak in its capacity, overconfident in its influence, but blind to the shift in global power. The sad part, young men, now numbering in their millions, paid the cost for this with their lives. Does that sound familiar? From the first days of the conflict, European leaders spoke as though they were moral guardians of the world. They held summits, issued threats, and proposed to crush Russia economically and politically. Then they expressed how they would stand with Ukraine and force Russia to stop this senseless aggression, which of course was framed as entirely unprovoked. They invested billions into Ukraine, convinced that their support would shift the balance and force Russia to concede.
We must put Ukraine in the strong condition of negotiating such peace. And this is why the integration of Ukraine in the European Union is for us at the heart of our peace efforts.
Yet, the peace deal that's currently right now on the table, trending on the news, is almost identical to the arrangement that existed before the war began. The same peace deal agreement that Boris Johnson and Joe Biden intervened in prior to the conflict, promising Ukraine military support and victory. Crimea stays with Russia, the Donetsk region remains under Russian control, and Ukraine is blocked from joining NATO. These outcomes were predictable from the beginning, yet Europe chose war over the reality. This means that if this peace deal is signed right now, then on every measurable scale, it is an undeniable disaster, especially when measured in the cost of human lives. Many of you have dropped comments asking how you can support this channel, even offering to donate or help financially. Until recently, I had no way to make this possible, but now through my Substack, it's never been easier for you to lend me some support. There's a free tier where you'll get 1 email per week, and for just $5 a month, about the price of a nice coffee, you'll receive a daily written update from all of my content, everything I produce. I'll be engaging with those of you who join, asking your thoughts on how to serve you and the continent better. Sometimes my videos do get demonetized, and there's also a small chance, as we saw with the Platform Africa stream, that a channel like this could be deplatformed. Even if the worst happens, we can regroup, rebuild, and keep pushing forward. We don't want any third party controlling this message, so with email backing us up, we can communicate directly. Thank you in advance for signing up. I look forward to connecting with you, not just on YouTube, but via email as well. The great Western countries that present themselves as the pinnacle of the first world civilization have displayed a level of incompetence that is quite frankly staggering. What makes this even more disturbing is how closely Europe's behavior resembles the old colonial patterns Africa knows all too well. Europeans dictated political outcomes in the Ukraine the same way that they have dictated outcomes across Africa for generations. It is well documented Ukraine's leadership was reshaped in 2014 through a regime change operation by Western powers. The democratically elected Yanukovych was removed from power in order to install a government aligned with Western interests. And here's the ironic part. When Russia seeks to take control of territory, which you could probably successfully argue that historically was part of Russia, which now is part of Ukraine, only agreed to because of Cold War era treaties, it's framed as the ultimate evil. Yet America, with Europe backing it fully, had already interfered in the democratic leadership and taken control of Europe's political direction years earlier. Ukraine's vast agricultural wealth, some of the richest grain-producing land on the planet, made the country strategically valuable. And, just like they've done in Africa, European powers positioned themselves to control economic pathways tied to resources. But the most revealing colonial parallel was Europe's attempt to seize Russian state assets before the war currently ended, something I made a video about just a few days ago. They called it reparations, something that they're not willing to do for many countries in Africa, despite their meddling and interference for hundreds of years. The European leaders announced that they would use frozen Russian funds held in European banks to pay for Ukraine's reconstruction and even finance European-made weapons for the conflict. This was presented as a reparations, a moral victory, yet it was nothing more than a modern form of resource extraction. Europeans tried to claim another nation's wealth, put it into debt, and dictate how it would be used, and profit from the military sale of equipment, all before any international legal process was concluded. Now, only a few weeks later, the announcement has already aged badly. The arrogance behind it is painfully exposed, and in all likelihood, Ukraine will be pressured into signing away any form of condemnation of Russia, effectively killing all legal justification for that European financial freeze. This behavior mirrors the very tactics Europe used in Africa: seize resources, shape political outcomes, enforce debt, and profit from the conflict. The difference is that in Ukraine, the plan has now collapsed. Europe assumed the world would agree to its judgment of Russia. Europe assumed its banking system still held unquestioned moral authority. Europe assumed its version of the law would be accepted globally. Instead, the move exposed Europe's arrogance. It showed the world that Europe is living in the past, where it still believes it is the center of global power. Even worse, this entire conflict raises a painful question that Europeans do not want to answer. Were they so incompetent that they could not predict Russia's inevitable gains? Or did they understand the outcomes from the beginning and still choose the path that allowed European arms manufacturers to profit from the war at the cost of millions of Ukrainian lives? I guess that's an open question, but either way, it's not a good outcome. Whether the cause was incompetence or predatory intent, the outcome is the same: a war that could have been avoided, a peace that mirrors the deal rejected before the conflict, and a Europe that exposed itself as a fading power. This is where Africa must pay close attention, because Europe relies heavily on its image of strength when dealing with African nations. Europe uses aid threats, loan conditions, political pressure, and international institutions to bully African nations into compliance. But the Ukraine war shows that Europe is no longer capable of enforcing the dominance it once had. Europe could not dictate terms in a conflict happening in its own region. It could not shape the political outcome. It could not force its version of international law onto the world. If Europe cannot do these things in Europe, then Africa should be able to utterly reject European neocolonialism altogether. Meanwhile, actual centers of global power are shifting elsewhere. China has become one of Africa's most important partners. Russia has built strong ties through the security and energy cooperation too. BRICS is emerging as a serious alternative to Western-dominated economic structures. And with South Africa leading the G20 right now, as we record, the summit looks more like a BRICS gathering with a handful of Western countries allowed to participate, a dynamic made even clearer by the United States boycott. The global South is rising, make no mistake, and it is demanding respect and refusing to be treated as passive subjects of Western interests, which has been the status quo for hundreds of years. Africa is no longer obligated to tolerate European pressure. The world is now multipolar, and Europe is desperately struggling but failing to remain relevant. This is a moment for Africa to negotiate boldly, to reject exploitative agreements, to build partnerships and serve African interests, as well as to assert sovereignty with confidence. Europe's collapse of influence in Ukraine is not just a European humiliation, it is a global signal that the old colonial powers no longer control the world. For Africa, this is more than a geopolitical shift. It is an opportunity to redefine its relationships, shape its own path, and build a future free from the shadow of European dominance. I would love to know what you guys think about this. Please feel free to put your thoughts in the comments section. But if you have nothing to say, would it be too much if I asked you to write the words, "Power is shifting," in the comments section? Just lets me know that you watched the video to the end, you like what I'm doing, you like the channel, and you want me to continue. Thank you so much for watching today, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.